Tamba took a very beautiful lady to the restaurant on a date. And just before the bill came, the lady said, "Darling, I have something to tell you." And Tamba, anticipating the worst, said, "What?" "Well, I already have a boyfriend," she said. "Phew, you scared the hell out of me," said Tamba. "I thought you did not have any money on you." Welcome to another episode of Anticipating the Worst Motivation Monday on Talk with Rams Live. I already have a boyfriend in the room with our resident personal development coach, Dr. Thando Sibanda. Me, September. And we are thought you did not have any money on serious. Welcome to another episode of Anticipating the Worst Motivation today, focusing on shaping your inner voice. I already have a boyfriend in the voice with our resident personal. We don't want to hear when coach Dr. Thando Sibanda. If not in the room and watching the recorded show, please send us your email on rams@talkwithrams.com, and we will invite you to join us in the room next time. But we do take your questions as we go along. Dr. T.
Good day, Brother Rams. How are you doing, man?
My brother, I'm dark and lovely. It's likely to be darker because of Eskom's load shedding. How are you?
I'm fine. I know we've had to accommodate Eskom this evening.
Yeah, I'm telling you, in a decade from now, there'll be children who are known as Eskom or load shedding or stuff like that. Those are going to be real names.
That's so true, man. I remember during the Gulf War, that some kids were called Saddam, some were called Scud, Missile.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
If you go to the Western Cape, there are lots of squatter camps, and they're always named around the era that we live in. You would have Iraq, you would have Afghanistan. They always happen around the era. So there's going to be a squatter camp called load shedding in no time.
Yeah.
So, Dr. T, let's get down to business. Those who join us, they'll find us on the way. We have a hard stop at some point to avoid load shedding. So tonight we're talking about shaping your inner voice to shape your outer world. I love that title, Dr. T. I love it so much.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for that statement. It's very important for us to just understand the power of your inner voice. In fact, I remember, walking in one day into my son's room, and he was talking to himself, having this conversation with himself, and it can be funny doing it out loud, But one interesting thing is that we all do it inside. We all have these voices inside our heads where we talk to ourselves constantly. We argue inside ourselves about what's right, about what's wrong. We rehearse arguments. This is where we craft and say, no. If he says that to me, this is how, I'm going to show him. All of these conversations are happening within ourselves. We assign blame, we justify our actions. It's this thing called self-talk. Very, very important, because remember, we think faster than we speak. We actually think 6 to 7 times faster than we speak. And our thoughts are defined by that inner voice, And so very interesting for us to know, Rams, is that while we all have voices in our head, they are not all the same voices. Some of our voices are encouraging and caring, and complimentary, but other voices that we have within us are defeating, discouraging, and demeaning. And so those voices can become very dark. And now here is the thing as we get at this plane of the ground, right? We need to figure out, how do these voices get there? And why do they take the stances that they do, right? And why do they carry so much weight? And if maybe for some of us here, those voices seem to be sabotaging you, what can you do about it? Because remember, these voices become a very important part of our self-perception, very, very critical, right?
So Dr. T, I don't want to, I feel like we're talking about a horror movie. So when some of these voices are mine and they're encouraging and they're complimentary, and the others are discouraging and defeating. So it's not some ghost speaking to me. It's all these voices, the positive and the negative, the encouraging and the discouraging, the defeating and the complimentary. They're all my voices.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Remember, the interesting thing is that we all have an inner voice, right? That inner voice is actually a culmination of the many different voices that we have. And it's interesting because we all know how to identify that voice that is you, the real you. Other people have a picture of you, but you've got a picture of yourself in terms of understanding this inner voice that is within you. And so the interesting thing, Rams, is that these voices come through what are called our grounding environment. And so we need good parenting, good mentoring to help us shape those voices from childhood, because we all have to be taught how to interpret what we're experiencing, what it's doing to us, and what's going on inside us, what that means and what to do about it, Let's say, for example, your child complained about a stomach ache, every time that you want to leave the house. The first question is you might ask them what they ate or how much sleep they got. But if that doesn't get you anywhere, then you ask them, what might they be thinking about? Are they feeling guilty or nervous about something? You are teaching them that they are an integrated being. And so what's happening within them actually finds a way of expression in terms of how they feel. So it's very important for us to understand that these voices develop from the time that we are kids, and the people that speak into our lives become a very critical point in terms of helping us shape that voice within us.
What would be the key observations to the concept of hearing or listening and hearing, Dr. T? I just need to understand this power of the inner voice and how it shapes my worldview and therefore the outer world. Right.
I think to bring it home, the first observation is that a lot of us rely on consistent activity to avoid addressing our toxic thinking and the impact that it's having. What am I saying? We live in a world where sometimes we don't want to be alone with our inner voice. We live in a very loud culture. We live in a culture of loud music, loud arguments, loud everything. We buy subwoofers and install them in our cars in that little small space called a car. I go buy a car that has a radio already. I say, no, it's not enough. And then I go and spend another 25,000 rand to pimp it up with speakers that face me inside. And when I'm driving down the road, the whole car is vibrating, and we blast ourselves with music at 5 a.m. driving to work. Why? It's because we can't handle silence, Rams. Because with silence then comes the inner voice. And because that inner voice consistently speaks, right? We panic. We panic. And so we blast ourselves with bomb, with rap and with everything else. It's because we don't want to handle that inner voice. Have you ever realized that if you don't know how to deal with issues, right? If you don't know how to handle that inner voice properly, we end up having this concept of self-destructive behaviors, this culture of wastedness, where it's an effort to numb that inner voice and whatever it is saying back into us. That is why it's very important for us to do this deep dive into understanding this inner voice and the power that it yields over us, because it's there in all of us.
Does my past, Dr. T, and maybe in particular, does my childhood have does it have any role on my inner voice? Do I keep on hearing my past when my inner voice is talking to me?
Oh yes, actually, here is where it gets very interesting, right? So the external voices from your childhood frequently become your internal voice as an adult. So the external voices, right, that were always speaking into you as a child, they become your inner voice as an adult. So if you had a grandmother who was always shouting at you, hey, you are not good enough, or you had a parent or a guardian who just totally didn't value you, and they spoke down at you and told you how useless you are and how unworthy you are. Have you ever realized that now when you grow up, your perception, your self-perception, your voice becomes self-sabotaging? Maybe someone is thinking, okay, my internal voice is not that of a very gentle person or of a very loving person, but it's of an impatient businesswoman, an angry alcoholic father, a mean, sarcastic, demanding coach. Over time, right, a version of their voice becomes your voice. And that's why a lot of us don't quite like our parents, because we're like, hey, I'm now so much like my mother. I'm now so much like my father. Hurt people become hurt people. The voices that spoke to you quite a lot in your childhood, they now become your voice. Why? Because you assimilate them. And now that becomes the voice from which you speak into your outer world.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that. We have found issues about reflecting on our relationships with our own parents, and yeah, that becomes the voice that we hear. But there's another voice, Dr. T, that I worry about.
Right.
We worry a lot about what we hear from other people, but could it be that sometimes we hear from other people what we actually are saying to ourselves?
Absolutely. In fact, Rams, how you talk to yourself, right, determines what you hear from other people. Why? Because your self-talk, right, shapes and becomes your perceptual framework. It becomes your worldview. And remember, your worldview is this cognitive framework through which you get everything that comes to you. So there is nothing like objectivity in general, because everything comes through a certain perspective. And a lot of those perspectives are so ingrained that they are now a part of our subconscious mind. And that voice where, man, even when you speak to very accomplished people, they will tell you, hey, you know what, I doubt myself a lot. They'll tell you, you know what, sometimes I don't even think I'm up for this. Sometimes, where is that voice coming from? Believe me, that voice was a very consistent voice, maybe in their past, in their upbringing. And now, then how that person in the present starts to speak to themselves, then starts to determine what they hear from other people. That is why, Rams, you can never say anything right to the wrong person. Try loving somebody who hates themselves. Because what you say and what they hear are totally different. And that's why when When someone says to us, maybe it's in a work environment, right? And somebody says, great work, I'll just tweak this little thing, to make it even better. We don't hear great work. No, we hear you are a piece of crap. I hate everything about you. You will never be good enough. That's not what they said, but that is what you heard. Why? Because your inner voice becomes the perceptual framework that determines what you hear from other people. And that's why a lot of times you could say, no, but that's not what I'm saying. And the person is already fighting. No, you don't need to fight. That is not what I was saying. Well, how did they mishear when you spoke very clearly? It's because the voice within them has a certain framework that already puts them at a disadvantage when they are listening to other people.
By the way, folks, if you want to come in, please do. I'm finding my spine is getting cold listening to Dr. T now. And I'm reflecting on some of the relations I have, and I'm thinking, could I have been the one saying that to myself and blaming it on the next person? But here's the other side, Dr. T.
Right.
Let's say my inner voice, as a result of today, starts to be a positive inner voice that's self-assuring, encouraging, and stuff like that. At which point do I start risking lying to myself? At which point do I start saying, I'm good, even though I've just done something bad?
Remember, your inner voice will always, the fact is that your inner voice will always be louder than any other voice, right? But there used to be this thing, Rams, where they say you are your own prophet. That means that a lot of times, really, you are the one that understands yourself better than anybody else. And there's something within you that will tell you, here, I'm just lying to myself. And that is why how that inner voice is shaped becomes very critical to what you believe. Because remember, self-belief is simply the voice of a confident inner voice. Self-doubt is the voice of a severely compromised inner voice. But what is the constant? The constant is that there is an inner voice. And that is why coaches, I remember one time I was watching Rams, I was watching this Manchester City coach, what's his name? Guardiola.
Pep Guardiola.
Pep
I
Guardiola.
know. Become forgettable after last weekend. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
To all the Chelsea guys in the house, yeah, well. but for me, it's very interesting, especially as a people development consultant, right? I love to say these guys who are good at winning, what is it? So I watch a lot of videos when he gives those pep talks during halftime. Man, they are very intense, eh? He really goes to a point where he's telling them that, guys, this championship is yours. It was born to be yours. It's only you who can give it away today. I want you to know that you are winners. I want us to go fight every inch and every little space. That's our cup. Why are you letting them take our cup? This is, why is it doing that? He is trying to replace every other voice in their heads, because he knows that when they go back out there after halftime, he's not going to be the one kicking the ball. But his voice needs to be so loud in their heads as they mark, as they cross, as they cover the bases, as they attack, as they defend. It must be his voice louder than any other voice. Because then, if his voice is loud enough, then they internalize it. Then it becomes their own voices that says, it's my cup. I need to push. I can win this. I can do this. I can do that. You see, that is why it's so important that we understand the power of this inner voice. And I want to challenge today our audience and say, based on what you end up doing, what is your inner voice saying about who you are, about how you process things? What is your inner voice saying about about intentionality, about your future? What is your inner voice saying about where you are going and who you are? Because that voice becomes louder than any other voice in your life.
Before we move on, let me also ask our audience, and anybody can volunteer. Is there a consistent inner voice that comes up in your life, professionally, personally, in your relationship, that you are very much aware of, and it's a very discouraging inner voice? Would you like to share how it comes up and what you normally do at that time? Anybody? There's only a few of us, so we can't even take too long to get there. Somebody must volunteer quickly. Thank you, Teboho.
Can you hear me?
Very well.
I'm not sure if this will fit into the inner voice, but I think firstly, I wanted to check if the inner voice and intuition could be more or less the same thing, or no?
No, intuition is like your sixth sense. It's a sense of feeling. Okay. Your inner voice is that voice that says, you know what, people are gonna laugh at you if you raise your hand to speak right now. Who's gonna listen to you? Kind of, you're not even good enough. Or your inner voice is the one that says, oh man, today you are gonna do great. You were born for this. Your boss needs to listen to you. You need to speak up for yourself. You see, all of us have got this. It's always talking, and it is the one that determines our self-confidence or a lack of it. That voice, remember, your thoughts are expressed in words, but there is a very consistent, and there is the loudest voice that really helps you show up in a particular way. That's the most important voice that I'm talking about.
I still need to
before you ask your question, and intuition, by the way, is also that invisible gun that women put on our heads. But yeah, you can continue.
I know. I have an issue with flexibility. I think I'm not very flexible, and when I don't plan or do things according to plan, I get thrown out. And I guess I'm assuming that inner voice is wanting to do things right and being perfect all the time. So when I'm thrown, like for instance, a simple example, last week we changed our session from Thursday to Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I spent the whole time struggling. The whole session, I really was struggling because I'm dealing with being flexible, because my mind was this session should be on a Thursday. Now that it's on a Wednesday, what's going to happen? What do I do? So I think I've got that struggle, but I think it's an inner voice of saying, I want things to be perfect. I want to show up in a perfect world and doing things perfectly. So when things are just thrown in here and there, then I get a bit messed up.
Dr. T,
yes,
I love what Teboho just did, because she's just put into action what you spoke about earlier. So I suspect, and you will tell us now that, because you're the expert here, I suspect what Teboho is talking about here is when all that we did was to change the scheduling time. And there, her inner voice blamed everything else on something that was just a. So we said to her, well done. She didn't hear well done. All she heard was, you did not do this very well. So the rescheduling messed up everything about her. And she felt, this rescheduling has just messed up my life.
True.
Is that
true?
Is that the right interpretation?
True.
It is absolutely. You see, now that struggle came from the fact that the inner voice was very uncomfortable about the change of time. And remember, the inner voice becomes louder than any other voice in your life, because it is the one that actually determines the course of action that you end up taking. Yeah. And that's why, remember when we speak, Teboho, we always say, you know what, I didn't want to attend the session, but then I said to myself, let me go. I wanted to go, and then I thought to myself, and then I said to myself, then I thought to myself, right? That thought to myself, the thought that follows, is actually your inner voice now directing you on what to do. It directs how you feel. It directs how you respond. It even tells you to get angry. It tells you, you know what? We even hear it very, very loudly. It's so persistent in our lives that actually it can remind you of somebody. I don't know, maybe some of us can tell us here, who does your inner voice remind you of? What does it tell you? Does it sound different in different situations? Is it friendly? Is it critical? I think we all have this inner voice. Let's hear from the guys on the show tonight.
Yeah, we're listening, guys. What does your inner voice, who does it remind you of?
Well, you know, for me, I have both, and let me explain to you what I mean. And I need my positive inner voice to really suppress this one that keeps on telling me that, you know, what if this thing doesn't work? I recently, you know, after 20 odd years in the hospitality industry, you know, left that industry, and now I'm self-employed. And in most cases, you know, I sometimes wake up in the morning and I feel like, yes, today I really don't wanna, I really don't wanna do this because I'm so used to, you know, the comfort of a paycheck of at the end of the month. But then the positive one comes and says, hey, wake up. If you don't go and do this, there's not gonna be bread on the table. So for me, it's just that getting that positive, you know, inner voice to suppress the negative one more. I really want to work hard to deal with this this negative one, because really it causes what I mentioned last week again, you know, the procrastination and the self-doubt and all those things that you mentioned on the previous talks.
Wow, Thabo, thank you for that. Lebo, before you come in, Dr. T, I think Thabo's got a very interesting inner voice situation. He's got a good cop and a bad cop. He's got two inner voices.
He's got a good cop and a bad cop. Yeah.
Which is good. At least they can negate each other. Lebo,
Right,
please come
right.
in.
Right, but you know which one must win. We'll come back to you, Lebo. Now, I heard about this guy who had a brown dog and a white dog. You know, they used to fight, and he used to be able to tell which dog was gonna win the following day. You know, and people say, but how do you know? How do you know? You know, well, his secret was that the dog that was gonna win, he fed it, and the one he wanted to lose, he would hold back the food. So, so the following day, he would win all these bets. He would say, today the white one is winning. Tomorrow the brown dog will win. You know, and it came out exactly like that. And the dog one was hungry, and the other one had all the minerals it needed. So it's like that. It's like that with the good voice and the bad voice. You know, it's very important that we become very intentional. You know, I call it watching your voice, like your inner voice, like a hawk. To say, okay, actually, this is the bad voice now coming out. Oh, this is the good voice. You see, the moment you now start listening to your voice, you put yourself in a much better position to actually win in terms of what you do and how you show up.
Okay, Thabo, feed the right dog. Lebo.
Thank you, Rams. So I used to struggle with feeling worthless, like fear of success, or like feeling that my efforts or my, like whatever it is that I'm doing is not enough. So I ended up doing crime just to feel worthy or to feel accepted. But now, back then, I applied or responded to that fear on the negative route. So now I can take the same fear, or I can take my past as a point of reference that, okay, Lewu, if you used to carry an assault rifle, it means you are not fearless. And if you could do something bad and succeed here and there and then end up failing or going to prison, why not apply that into something good, something something that you'll be proud of? So like so like now I can overcome that fear of failure, that okay, before I've tried something bad and I prospered here and there, but I failed, and then here I am today. So now I can face whatever positive thing fearlessly. I can overcome that fear. Like now I've even enrolled for piano lessons. Which is something that I've been wanting to do, but afraid of, okay, what if I don't make it? So I'm like, okay, let me do it. Even if I don't make it there, I'll try something else. Maybe I'll try bass guitar, I'll try this and that. So yeah, that's how I overcome my fear.
Wow, nice feedback. Nice feedback, Lewu. Thank you very much. Please allow me to write your book for you when you are ready to. I'll be your ghostwriter. You've got a story to tell.
It definitely is a very powerful story. You see, but right there, Rams, is a very practical example of these voices and the power of the inner voice. Because the inner voice would say, you know what, you can do this and do that and do that, leading to bad outcomes. But now that same inner voice is now able to drive him towards positive things. See, it's not even what other people are saying around you. No, it's about what your inner voice is saying that then determines how you listen to the external world. In fact, Rams, cognitive therapy is all about being able to replace your inner voice. And I know we pay a lot of money, you know, just to get some of these interventions done. But the whole point of it is that inner voice, if it's negative, it needs to be replaced. And to do that, remember we once did a session on emotional intelligence, where we're talking about self-awareness, that you've got to watch yourself like a hawk. You've got to consistently watch yourself, not just in terms of what you are doing, but in terms of the voice that is speaking to you. And it's very interesting because one of the examples I was gonna give, Lebo, was to say, for a guy to actually say to himself, let me go and jump over the fence and break into someone's house and take what I didn't work for. Do you realize that that person has got a very loud and a very dominant inner voice that justifies and says, it's okay, go for it. You know, if they do this, run fast, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see, what's most important is not even the external environment, but it is the inner voice. And that inner voice is a result of a lot of these small voices that used to speak into them. And now they grow up, those voices become a part of the inner voice. And now the human has a challenge moving forward because of this inner voice.
There's a concept, Dr. T, that I always think about when it comes to inner voice. And it's the concept of what have I got to lose? Or the concept of what is there to gain? As an inner voice, and trying to use either of the two as my inner voice to remind myself to do what I want to do. And for me, personally, when it's something that I think I don't have much to lose out of, the inner voice that normally comes in is, what have you got to lose? You know, the worst that could happen, you know, like if I wanted to wink at Tebogo there, the worst I could ever get is her saying no. That's all I could lose. That's her saying no. But when it's something huge, when I want to finish that book, or when I want to finish that degree or something like that, I use the other inner voice that says, what have I got to lose if I don't do this? And it tends to remind me that there is much at stake if I don't face my evil, my devil, and go for it.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, you see, the inner voice needs to be trained. Remember how it got into you is that it was trained into you.
Yeah.
So now, if your inner voice is sabotaging, remember, Rams, very few people have an inner voice that prompts them into positive action. Normally, the inner voice says, "Hey, man, you've been working hard. It's okay if you go to work late today, or it's okay if you skip exercise." Or the inner voice says, "Hey, cake is good, man. You know, let's have it morning, afternoon, and dinner. You know, let's have pap and flakes every day."
But cake is good, Dr.
Yeah, yes. No, it is in proportions. In proportions. So the point is we've got to train our inner voice. And that's what cognitive therapy is really all about. We must train our inner voice not to sabotage us. And you spoke it very well when you said, look, when I've got a book to write, right? The issue should not be what happens, you know, if I don't write it. We must also say, what happens if I write it?
Yes. What have I got to gain?
Yeah, what have I got to gain? A lot of times, right, we're always saying, what's wrong about this picture? How about we train our voices to say, actually, what's right about this picture? Because you will see that as much as we are trained to be averse to consequences, we are also trained to be drawn to rewards. And so it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we are consistently at war with our inner voice if it wants to sabotage us. And that's why I always say, that's why a lot of us are still writing that book 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years later. That is why we are still, we are still cleaning out that garage, you know, we are still doing that course that we wanted to do years later. Why? Because our inner voice says, you know what, I don't really even think you are capable of finishing a course, or you are even capable of finishing the book. You don't even have half the time to do that. You are busy. You've got to go to work in the morning, and then in the evening there are kids. You need to be kinder to yourself. You see, the inner voice, it's even a crook. So we need to really stand up and watch ourselves like a hawk, so that we are very intentional about recalibrating that inner voice within us. Very critical, Rams.
And finally, Dr. T, is this inner voice critical to the relationships that I keep, especially to healthier relationships?
In fact, Rams, to have healthier relationships, we need to be intentional about redefining and redirecting our inner voices. Because remember, a healthier inner voice becomes the foundation for our external experiences in relating with others. So the level at which I show up in confidence on this particular show is a result of my inner voice. So imagine if I say to myself, you are the worst neuroscientist around there. You know, you are the worst speaker, you are the worst motivator. Do you even think people are going to listen to what you have to say? I could never come here and confidently articulate some of these things if I listened to a negative inner voice. And so all the time, I've got to really say to myself, I am capable. So my inner voice must be one of strength. And I'd like all of our viewers and our listeners to remember this. Next time you are in a situation where you either have to speak, or you've got to show up, you know, or you've got to do something, or you've got to stand in front of people. Some people stand in front of people and they feel a rush of energy. And some people stand in front of people and they sweat. What is the difference? Same audience. All cute people watching you. Someone will feel a rush of energy and get a burst of confidence. Another one will sweat and totally forget everything they prepared. What is the issue? The issue is not the audience, it's the same audience. The issue is not the room, it's the same room. The issue is the inner voice, because it determines the level of confidence with which you show up.
Could it be the amount of drugs the other one took as opposed to?
Yeah, I never take drugs before you speak. Yeah, but really the quality of life experience that we get to live out. And remember, these are the good old days of the next 20 years. Remember, these are the sculpturing frameworks of your aspired destination or of your aspired future. That is why no day must be wasted, because every day is a seed of the future. Because remember, you never judge the success of your day by how much harvest you've gathered, but you judge the success of your day by how much seed you've sown. Because in life, you are either seeding or harvesting. So every voice, your inner voice is either a seed for a good harvest in your life, or it's a seed for a bad harvest in your life. And so the outcomes, the behavioral outcomes, the character outcomes, the destiny outcomes that you will get in your life are directly proportional to the quality of your inner voice. Because that is what determines really how you view the world, how you hear others speaking to you, and how you then relate and respond to everybody else around you.
Any last comments, folks, before we wrap up? Yes.
Yes. Yes. I just wanted to add on what Dr. T was saying about like being watchful of our inner thoughts, like because dysfunction has been my normal for too long. Like feeling worthless, like thinking that I'm not good enough, it was like so normal. So now I'm training myself to be watchful of every negative comment from my inner voice. Then I make it a point of proving it wrong. And then I take note of the positive ones and I make sure that I prove it right. So like, that's what I'm training myself to be mindful of my thoughts, of my inner voices. Then the negative ones, I prove them wrong. The positive ones, I make sure that they drive me to like proving them right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lev Steps.
Hi, I wanted to check on our subconscious mind. Would that somehow also be related to our inner voice? Because I read somewhere where it says that we spend 90% of our time in our subconscious mind, meaning we are on autopilot most of the time because of the habits and the behavior that we've accumulated over the years. So if you are not aware of that inner voice and you spend 90% of your time in your subconscious mind, there is a lot of damage that you might be doing for us as parents, for instance, with your kids, you know, because you're only 10% conscious of what you're doing. How do you get to that stage then when you are aware of that inner voice and you use the word recalibrate?
Yeah, recalibrate, absolutely. And you are actually very spot on, because really your intellect is only has a memory span of what, 10, 15, at most 20 seconds. After that, everything else comes from your subconscious mind. Mm-hmm. So really your priorities, your character, your memories, your habits, all of that is stored in your subconscious mind. Mm-hmm. That is why a lot of our responses are not necessarily cognitive or executive functionally, executive functional outcomes. They come from our subconscious mind because we are now unconsciously competent in certain areas, because now that's who we are. So I define myself as really a collection of these subconscious, network that I am, of things that now I get to do, even my thinking patterns, even my doing patterns, all of these things, that's why up to 90% of your time is actually spent in your subconscious mind. Have you realized that actually thinking consumes a lot of energy? It burns a lot of sugar. That's why, when you have a strat session, people need breaks very, very, consistently, and they need food very consistently. Why? Because thinking, the brain, takes a lot of energy, for you to actually think. That's why we spend a lot of time in our subconscious mind. And then the danger is that when a negative voice becomes our main inner voice, everything we do is processed through that. That is why there are people who are very toxic in your workplace. There are people who are toxic. You don't want to be around them. That's why there are people who are grumpy. Can you imagine for the guy who's grumpy, and for him to be like that for years, it's because there's a voice that is speaking to him concerning that. That says, this is who you are. The rest of the world gets it wrong. You everybody else, this is who you are. You know what? This is, the challenge is really the inner voice. And that is why we need to watch ourselves like hawks. That is why we really need to be on our toes and recalibrate that inner voice to make sure that it is working for us and not against us.
Wow. Well, because of one negative inner voice, we have to stop that inner voice called ESCO. I don't want to take a chance and then we get cut off. So my positive inner voice says, I think we've achieved a lot tonight. And I really thank everybody for recalibrating themselves to allow to move ourselves to an earlier time, as opposed to the time that we always agree on. 2 hours early is much of an ask. That's why there's a lot of guys who are not with us. But for those of you who came in, I truly thank you. And I hope that it was worth your while. I know it was worth my while. And Dr. T, thank you very much as usual.
No, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Yeah. Next week we're gonna do a very, very good one. It's gonna be quite interactive. I look forward to that one as well.
Well, folks, from me, Rams Mabote, goodbye and God bless.
Goodbye, guys.
Oh, we didn't hear cut today.
Tamba took a very beautiful lady to the restaurant on a date. And just before the